I had a practice for a while when there was friction in partnerships, and I would listen to cocktail jazz. Do 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 do, and it just like brought this levity to the moment because it's so happy.
Like try to be angry after.
Yeah, and it just somatically, like my body was like, okay.
Okay, let's try this on. Welcome everyone. I'm here with Madelyn Moon. It's quite an honor to drop in with you. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So one reason why I wanted to do this podcast with you is just looking at your videos specifically and not having met you before, there's a felt sense of, wow, this woman is like in her like full expression. And there's a beautiful aspect where you weave in like, I would say humor, also with like some deep stuff. And I feel like I've seen people try to do that, but I watch people kind of get hung up on like, oh, spirituality is not funny and there's like a serious aspect of it. Has it like through your own process, has there been like a catalyst that has allowed you to like unlock that expressive part of you?
Yeah. You know, the first teacher or coach that one has really leaves an imprint, I think, in their system. Absolutely. Of like how authority in this interesting world is and supposed to be. And I had a teacher, like my very first coach was just very like orderly and rigid, and one of the things she would do with me was before I sent out any emails to any potential clients, she'd have me send it to her first to check that there was a certain amount of periods and exclamation points, not too much. Like there was such a hyper focus on the professionalism. She sent me audios on like lectures about the difference between the social self and the professional self and separating the two. So I did that for years, and I was so... And I'm not talking about Virgo devotion orderly. I'm talking just hyper vigilant, like anal. And I think people felt that. I certainly felt it. And I don't know, I probably about 2019 was when I started to be like, well, fuck this. Like something about this is starting to hurt my spine, and I don't feel, there's no fun in this work anymore. And around that time, I'd had this really sweet revelation just around my family. Like my family is fucking weird. My dad, I'm so much like my dad. And I refused a lot of, like, he sings opera when he's talking about a sandwich he's going to make. He will sing it. He will sing it all day. He's got like such an animation in his body. And I never really saw it for the gift that it is until around that time. And I was like, wow, I really want to like live my true moon self and be like my dad for a little bit and see what it's like just to embrace all of these quirks within myself that I've adopted from him. And reels had just come out and I made my first ever reel, and it was like less than 30 seconds. And I was doing a little take one, take two skit on take one in a relationship, how to deal with jealousy in a passive aggressive way. Then I showed take two on the artistic way to work with jealousy. And the girl in the skit, which was me, I was the girl and the man, but the girl like pulls out a knife, you know, she's upset about something, and she pulls out a knife and she's like, you're not going to go to lunch with Katie. And just like became this Russian woman. And it was just so short. And I was like, I'm just going to make something that's like with an accent and goofy. And it like did really well. And that recognition from people of something is landing here, really, that's what gave me permission of like, oh, this is, I didn't even know it was funny, actually, which makes it even more funny. I was just like, I'm going to do a teaching on how to be artistic with your jealousy. And everyone was like, LOL, LOL. And I was like, great. Okay. Yeah. This is funny. Okay. And then I just kept leaning in. And the more I leaned in, the more better I felt. And then I started bringing that playfulness into my work, and then just unwiring all the really weird kinks that were in my psyche around how I'm supposed to be as a teacher.
Yeah.
And it was the answer to a lot of the woes that I was experiencing in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one thing that you said, like I know this is for myself, is that at first showing up, especially in, I would say, personal development or coaching or just mind-body growth in a way, it's like I noticed this aspect of myself, like, okay, I want to be taken seriously. You know, I want people to respect me. And so that like came out very rigid, very structured. And it's like the world, and what was interesting, the world responded in a way like, okay, we like the teacher archetype. Like we like that from you. Like we like that expression. Okay, give us more of that. And then a certain time, or like that's only one archetypal expression that I love, but there's so many other aspects of me. And I think that after a while you start to feel actual physical pain if you don't have channels for all of your expressive nature. And something that you said, like that you witnessed that your dad was very like animated. I just recently heard about this, but there's actually a religion called like Animism.
Oh, I
totally
believe in this.
Yeah, 100%. It's like Native American religion or whatever. They put this term to their sort of religion, which I guess is their way of life. But to be animated is actually to be full of life. And so we are like full spectrum beings, and it is a process. I work with so many people that are stuck in this like little narrow window of their expression and unlocking like all of those other parts without, you know, fear of like judgment. And I think that one thing is people can feel when it's like your authentic self coming through. And it's like a felt sense in their nervous system, like, wow, this person's actually being truthful and they're showing me like all of them. So it's like there's a felt sense, like resonance, almost a magnetism.
Yeah. And an interesting thing about this, like I really believe this word authentic has power. And I also think that it can be such a limitation to the discovery of expression.
Yeah.
Like when I go into classes and it's like, let's find our authentic selves. Like, what about the parts of us that don't feel authentic?
Yeah.
Because part of what keeps us playing in this small emotional spectrum is thinking we need to be fully authentic in order to express.
Yeah.
So I am of the firm belief, and I imagine you probably feel similar, that body first, emotions follow.
100%.
Yeah. So instead of going into like, I'm going to feel the part of me who is sacredly slutty, you know, because everyone's talking about this archetype. Well, what if you grew up in a Catholic family and like it was just totally shut down and you didn't go into that like, you know, Catholic girl archetype? You went like the direction of like rule follower, and it feels really weird to imagine being a slut. Like you just can't imagine it. Well, what if you like just feel what it's like to open your legs?
Yeah, try it on.
Make the sound. It's not going to feel authentic. It's not going to feel like you're programming and what you're used to. And what does that feel like to not feel authentic in this new archetype? What does that bring up? And then can you amplify that emotion and make that bigger? So when we use the body to personify and animate these archetypes, any archetype, any character, any film person, like or character on a movie or a show, if you want a piece of that, watch their mannerisms, imitate their mannerisms, feel how those mannerisms move through your vessel. Over time, if this becomes a life practice, that's how we start to embed. Like embodiment is about embedding. So actually getting the body to take these new shapes is how we start to find, how we start to expand our capacity for what is authentic.
Absolutely. And I feel like you just put beautiful words to something that I describe as like somatic intelligence in a way where it's like, I think when people tune into like being authentic, it feels very much like it's a noun, like it's a static thing. Like it's like, okay, if I'm authentic, I'm like being me, which you are actually, and I say this all the time, you're a verb, you're a process, you're a change. You're like an ever evolving, and the you yesterday is going to be different than the you tomorrow. And one like topic that I hear over and over and over again is about like this idea of imposter syndrome, where it's like, okay, to a certain extent, like you should feel imposter syndrome, because if you're not, then you're like not expanding your range of expression and trying on, like, how are you going to know what you actually like if you don't like expand yourself and try on new personas or new, like, you could say, I mean, I look at it as like almost like clothes, just like try it on, see what it feels like. And so I think people get stuck in that rigid aspect where it's like, go push your expression, get uncomfortable, try it on, see how it feels in the body. And that will expand like the body first. And then you'll probably start to feel a lot more comfortable in that, in your body, in your emotions, in your mind. Like, it all follows this bottom up process.
Yeah. Like, there's so much juice in imposter.
Yeah.
Imposter archetype. Like, if you feel the sensation, like, what are the sensations of imposter? Like, what's the shape that imposter takes? Probably it's a little collapsed and it's a little gurgly, a little gargoyle-y. What would it be like to feel that feeling come up, and instead of either push it to the side or pretend like it's not there, use it as part of this archetypal exploration? Great. This is the archetype that's coming up. What shape does that take? Can you breathe it a little bit deeper? And then it's only moving through and embracing any of these characters that are coming up within us, that we actually get to see what's on the other side, and we get to create space. Because if we don't touch something fully, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's taking up like 75% of your body as this black hole of imposter syndrome, when instead you can just totally enact it. Yeah. And then you have all that space back in your body to like, okay, well, now what? What's the next flavor that wants to be explored? Yeah, it's a beautiful way to live life, just to constantly wake up in wonder of what emotion or what energy is going to present itself today, and then meet it.
Yeah, and how do I allow it to move through me? And it's so powerful for people. Like, I think of a beautiful representation of that is just ecstatic dance, which a lot of people hate on that. But I have watched people have massive emotional releases from ecstatic dance, where when you get into a room, and of course it's like very much a new age thing nowadays, ecstatic dance, that most people feel incredibly uncomfortable doing and moving their body in all different ways that like just do not make sense. But that aspect of getting out of the head and just getting into the body and moving your body in ways which you have not allowed yourself to move will be uncomfortable, but in that discomfort will be the expansion of your actual like full spectrum physical experience. And I think that same principle applies to like what you're saying as far as like the emotional aspect, also the mental aspect. And I'm curious, like, because I know you do a lot of stuff around like helping people become like the main character, like the main actor of their life. Like, what does that actually look like, I guess, when you are working with somebody?
Yeah. So I mostly do group work, because for there to be a performance, you need the audience members.
You
need more people. Yeah. It's where the work comes to life. It's incredible. So I do all sorts of theatrical projects with my students, from sacred theater to monologues, to improv, to skits, things they have to go do out in the real world, like writing poetry, reading it from a stoop for all to hear. Like one time with my last group, for their breakfast assignment, I had them all dress up as hot messes and go out and try to open the restaurant with their hot mess. You know, instead of trying to like shush the hot mess within us.
Okay, define that a little bit. Like hot.
So, you know, like there's a lot of things people carry, particularly women, carry shame around being a hot mess. Like maybe there's a struggle with finances, there's a struggle with arriving on time. Their masculine inside doesn't really have them, or they have fears that it doesn't have them. And all this stuff gets in the way of them actually living their dharma, because if you don't think you can meet a deadline, it's really hard to like meet a deadline and hold clients and do the things you need to do in order to be a teacher. And a lot of the people who come to work with me want to make an impact in some way. So if they have this fear that their hot messness is the thing that's going to stop them from finding love, from making money, having success, great, let's play with the hot mess so that it's no longer lurking behind your shoulder.
Yeah.
And we do it with the body. So I'll have them go out and like, I had one girl had lipstick all outside of her face and one like just cheap makeup. One had to have like bra straps like out and a thong out of her pants and like
hot mess.
Just a troop of hot mess women.
I love that.
And go out to breakfast. And they were so tired by that day. They were all kind of in grumpy moods. So they were going out as like hot messes and grumpy moods and like really feeling like hot messes. And created art with it, like creating art. How do you actually take the thing you feel shame around and then play with it with heart? So I'll have in this, I've worked with any and every kind of energy, any and every kind of thing that holds shame.
Yeah.
And I have them either add heart or add fuck to it. Like, how do you add sex energy to that? Or how do you add love and heart to that? And then you can take that into the world as a gift. Like, if you add fuck energy to something on a scale from 1 to 10, if you're going out to the grocery store, do it at a 2. Do it with your breath. Do it with your eye contact. Like, there's the subtlest ways we can work with transmissions. And I often will name my students too, like throughout the program at different times, they'll get many different names. But if someone has maybe, for example, wants to hold back their leading actress energy, they feel shy around sharing their beauty with the world or with their partner, I might give her a name. One of the names in one of my programs was Squirting Starlight.
I love that.
Squirting Starlight. How does Squirting Starlight go to dinner? How does she make love? How does she pick up the phone and like order delivery? What is the sound that comes out of her mouth? And what's the way that she walks? How does she dress? So I'll find these little things. It's whatever the current energy is that's causing the most kink in the system, and then totally personify it, amplify it, animate it for a period of time, sometimes months. Like your whole identity becomes she who that, or, you know, Squirting Starlight, or she who runs with the wolves. Like, you know, there's all these names you can give these archetypes within, and then you truly sink into the practice through your breath, through your, like, who you interact with, your friends, how you handle life situations. Everything is about that name.
I love that because it's real life practice of the somatic embodiment of that which is uncomfortable, and then being able to like act it out. Like there is this concept within somatics called reenactment, where it's like we will continue to call in certain scenarios, like maybe traumatic or stressful scenarios, until we like learn a new adaptive pattern. But it's like, instead of letting that just like happen in your life, it's like, okay, we can actually like create a thing around this, and we can actually like create a stage for you to reenact and find a new adaptive, like you could say adaptive pattern or adaptive relationship to that aspect of yourself, which is like, I love that. I love that. One of the things you said that you specifically like doing group coaching, which I agree 100%. One-on-one is powerful, obviously, but I think that most of our healing happens like in relation to other people, because most of our wounds have happened from groups of people or other people. Like most has happened from judgment or the impressions that other people have put on us, and then we absorb that impression. Then it may make a ripple within us, then to suppress that or repress that, and then it becomes depressed and like calcified, densified into the body, until we figure out like how to channel that into a form of expression to move it through us. And one of the things that I I think that a lot of people watch my stuff specifically and they see people like releasing emotions, and you know, it looks like really ugly, like messy emotions, or it could be the full spectrum. It could be laughter. It could be like sensual energy or orgasm or anger and like crying and screaming. Because most of us have been so suppressed that we're not okay with that, actually allowing those messy parts of ourselves to come through. But after a certain period of time, then it becomes about, okay, now how do I channel this in like a very artistic way? So I would consider what you're doing almost like level 2. Yes, in a way. Level 2.
That's right.
It's beautiful. Okay, so I know that you work a lot in like relationships a little bit, and like polarity was something that we were diving into before we started this. Where does this work, I guess, tie into relationships specifically?
Yes. Thank you for asking this wonderful question.
Yeah.
So in relationship, there's this really beautiful theory called Imago matches. Have you heard of Imago?
I have not.
There's a book called Getting the Love You Want that goes deep into it if anyone is attracted to this idea. But the idea, Imago, means like image match. So there's a theory that we often match with partners who have the best and worst qualities of our parents combined. Yes. You know, and there's just the beauty of that, of like, this is familiar, this is love, I remember this flavor, yes, I love this home. And then there is sometimes the terror or trauma or the ways that your nervous systems create friction in those qualities that your parents had or have that you don't really like. It triggers abandonment wounds or anxious attachment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Anxious, avoidant. It is so interesting that we like the magnetism happens like between the best and the worst. Like we call, like we're attracted to people that usually have the thing that triggers our specific core wounding, and also the things that also light us up in the same way. It is that dualism of the magnetism.
Yeah, and with this idea that we can use our expression, our range of expressions in relationship as a offering, as a gift, we can actually begin to bridge from the bad qualities from our parents that trigger us into that thing that we call transmutation. When we're wanting to come together with a partner and we say, let's heal our lineage lines together. And then all of a sudden you're creating more karma. It may feel like you're creating, and it's like hard to know how to move out of that and actually create alchemy. So this idea of being creative in love, to be artistic in love, is to transmutate these otherwise friction points, because fire needs friction.
Yeah.
It's the only element that actually needs something in order to be created. Water is water, air is air, earth is earth. Fire must be created. So when we have this friction between two people, there can be an explosion of sorts, and it can re-traumatize and it can trigger. Or you can take these instances, you can take these triggers as if it's water and create alchemy, turn it into wine, turn it into a piece of art that creates that bridge of healing. And this is a practice. And I mean that in like the strongest verb sense. Yeah. You have to keep arriving to the mat over and over. And even when you do something one time, let's say you and your partner are in a heated moment, and you take a risk and you do something kind of funny, kind of playful. Maybe you smack them in the face with a tortilla and it lands poorly. I'm going to try that next time. There's actually a whole thing on TikTok about slapping each other with tortillas with water. With a mouth of water. I think that's so clever. So let's say you smack them and it lands poorly. They don't laugh. They're very activated still. Yeah. How do you stay in that pose of play, even when they're so, and I don't mean ignore their reaction. I just mean hold the pose of like, I'm making it my mission to bring love, perhaps a little levity, and grace to this situation and allow your partner to go through whatever they need to go through, but you take it as, this is my practice. I'm holding the pose. I'm here to transmutate, because sometimes it really can take one person to create a cultural shift in your partnership. Sometimes it really takes both.
Yeah.
But it takes the person listening to this episode right now to start taking that as one of their, you know, if should they want.
It's so powerful, like holding your pose. Cause I see, and I've experienced this where, you become enmeshed to the point of where, okay, say you tried something like that, your partner was not having it. And then, okay, now you cater and try to fix the situation where, you can actually make it worse in a way. Cause then it adds to, it's like when someone's having a really hard time, the last thing you want to do is go over there and be like, are you okay? Like, is it all right? Like, and meet them with that same energy. Really what they want is that calm, like centered, I'm still in my energy, but I'm also here with you while you experience whatever you need to. Like, that is such a hard thing. It is so hard.
Yeah, it's an art form. For sure, it's an art form. And yeah, and there are ways that women perhaps gift, and this is going to sound heteronormative, but my specialty is with women and men.
Yeah.
So there are ways that women can gift men with their particular flavor of play, beauty, radiance, you know, full abundance, like milk pouring out of the breasts energy, like just loving him in these certain ways that men are gonna be like, yes, give it to me. And then there are ways that men can hold the pose for women that we don't want the same. We don't want the same, like, don't lavish me with beauty, maybe kind of pull my hair a little bit to help me distress. Like and that's an art form too, of like how to, perhaps there is a stressful moment, and I'll speak for myself. There's kind of a pressure I like to be met with when I feel I am having a hard time. Like sometimes I like to have temper tantrums. Like that's one of my art forms of expressing myself. I just need a container. I need 5 minutes to fully have this like sacred tantrum. I'm going to say all the things I need to say. Every fucking thing, I'm going to say it in this. And I get really expressive and really big. And that's kind of a feminine form, because the feminine is energy.
Oh, absolutely.
And then the masculine is
the container.
It's the container, the depth, the consciousness. And so one of the gifts men can often bring to women is the deep breath, is the firmness. And you can also switch as much as you want. There's no way that women are supposed to be or men are supposed to be. There's just these little tiny nuances to what can be really rich gifts for each other to give to each other. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And, you know, when you're saying that, I'm getting this like visualization of like, okay, the man is like the riverbed that allows like the woman who is the water, the energy, the movement to like press up against the sides and like find its way of flow, right? I'm curious, have you, something that I've seen within myself, within maybe switching gears to like anxious avoidant sort of attachment styles a little bit, have you found that people, when they resonate or showing like patterns of anxious attachment or signs of avoidant attachment, like, do you feel like that is something that is kind of static, or you bounce between the two? Like, have you experienced both in relation? Have you been the anxious one and the avoidant one?
Yeah. Well, I'm avoidant if I feel, this is a spectrum, clearly. Yeah. So I can tend to be more avoidant if the person I'm with is more of the one that's wanting more love and connection than me.
Yeah.
If they want more love and connection, they're leaning in, can we hang out tomorrow? Can we hang out the next day? Then it's polarity. This is polarity. Then I pull the other direction. I'm like, I'm a freedom seeker. And then I take that pose. But then when I'm with someone who's a little more like, they're still available, but they're it's subtle, but they're the one that's a little more, my purpose.
Focused. Driven.
Then I'm like, oh, I want to go out and get us flowers, and I want to make us dinner, and like, what are you doing tonight? I diffuse in that space. Like I just like pour my essence into that, and it can be anxious and it can be avoidant, but I don't really live in those realms anymore. For me, it's more so the way I see it is that one person, anxious avoidant, is very real. Yeah. It's just that's not exactly where I'm often.
It's not a diagnosis.
It's not a diagnosis. I think now, like, there's no anxiousness in I need for myself. I see this in clients, but there's none of that, or like an avoidance where I can't, like, intimacy scares me. It's more so either I'm the one craving more of the love and connection, or I'm the one needing more freedom and purpose.
Yeah.
And then, and ideally it's a dance. Ideally, like in any partnership, if there are moments of anxiousness and there are tendencies of avoidance, then you're able to find yourself back into that dichotomy of love and purpose, because it's a healthier version of it. But then even then, learning what each other's needs are. Yeah. And how do we satiate those needs to the best of our ability in the relationship, and then figure out what are the needs our partner just can't satiate, and be responsible for getting those needs met on our own, which certainly there are a lot that we need to be responsible for. Yeah.
I love that, because, I think about it's very similar to what I would consider like nervous system sovereignty, or like being able to choose. Like health is the ability to choose. It's when we get stuck in one of those polarity, or one of those sides. I'm not gonna use polarity, but one of those sides of duality is when there's issues, like when we are in the anxious attachment and can't express ourselves in a way, or or if we need to be the one to meet our needs to get back to center point. Like if we can't have choice to shift, then it's like, okay, well, we actually don't have choice. We don't have nervous system sovereignty. And it's almost like when people get stuck in a sympathetic state, you spend too much time there, you're going to get forced to the other side. You're going to get put into a forced rest. Your life is going to force you into a parasympathetic state. You're going to get sick. You're going to get injured. Something's going to happen. You spend too much time in that side, well, you're going to have so much energy bubbling up within you, like, oh, fuck, I got to do something with my life. Like, and then you'll get flung into the other side. You'll probably like have anxiety, like, oh, I got to do something with my life. And then it's like this ping pong effect that happens, instead of reframing it to like, okay, it's actually a dance, and there's the shadow expression of it is anxious and avoidant. But I would say the healthy expression of that is like, what would be the two words of like the healthy? Would it be push and pull? Would it be like magnetism?
Well, I say love and freedom.
Love and freedom. Okay.
Yeah, because
connection and freedom.
Yeah, the anxious one is the one that's wanting more connection and intimacy and love. The avoidant one is just prone to freedom. And I think those definitions make sense on the healthy side of the spectrum, because we are feeling those two things within us all day long, just individually, like the craving for union and the craving for individuality. Yeah. Like my soul purpose, what am I here to do? My dharma. And then also, what's the union I'm creating, the family I'm creating, the lineage that I'm putting forth in the world.
Yeah, and being able to fluctuate between those two without getting stuck. Because I see this with so many people, where most people, they either get stuck in like, okay, I can individuate really well, or I can like, I need connection all the time. And I see that within coaches or practitioners, where you have people that are like really good, and I don't know if I would use the word narcissist, but it's like, okay, I can feel myself really well. Or you're on the other side of the spectrum, like I'm an empath and I feel everyone's shit, and I can't, and I have a hard time knowing what's mine and theirs. I lose myself in the other. And it's like, okay, we need, or it would behoove us to be able to like flow between those two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself like stronger in the individuation state, or stronger like within the empathic state, or you're pretty good at like fluctuating between those?
I think overall I'm pretty good at fluctuating between the two.
Or it depends on the person, maybe, that you're...
If we're just talking about me, I'm pretty...
Yeah.
But the minute the person enters...
You're like, oh shit, this is a different chemical combination.
Yeah. I mean, I had a relationship initiation for myself where I couldn't feel myself. I got so...
Lost yourself in the
other. I
other.
got so locked in. Like, I would ask for permission to talk about myself. And he didn't ask me to do that. He wasn't like, you need to do this. But just the dynamic started where I was in such devotion to him that me taking up more space in conversation or requests or needing help, I just got into this weird thing where can I talk about myself for the next few minutes? Just real quick. Talk about things and then, okay, I'm done. Thank you. Like go back and like, there wasn't this, it was just really interesting. And I didn't even see that it was happening just because I felt like I was in such of the flow of love, not necessarily anxious, just like devotional. And there was some misplacedness in that devotion. And I didn't know it at the time that I needed to give more of that to myself, of what I really need. And that would lead to all sorts of things. It's not that I would cater. I would actually have moments where, because I was starting to lose trust in having myself, that I would explode, that I would get avoidant, because I didn't know how to be in the presence of him and feel myself. So then I'd punish him for it. And all these like entanglements and really strange things. So I think it really depends on like your karmic history with somebody, or what you're there to do together, what you're there to create. Like, I loved what you put out a post, I think yesterday, or reel, that was talking about the new paradigm of relationship is co-regulating nervous systems. And I feel that that's so important, how we can co-regulate and be in devotion to the other as we be in devotion to ourselves. Like equally. And sometimes there are going to be moments where you do fluctuate. Your partner needs more. Yeah. And you give more. Yeah. And then in a healthy dynamic, it returns. You need more at some point, and your partner is there to give more. And there's this like true definition of partnership. Yeah. Not roles you're playing, not like the projection screen of how you think they're supposed to be and vice versa. What we're doing in partnership is making the outside world easier. Absolutely. When we're inside. And if we're making the inside world harder, then the outside world's going to be a lot harder.
Absolutely. Yeah. I read a post the other day, and I don't know, this might sound weird, but it's like, how can we make ourselves like, the biggest thing in a relationship is making ourselves like useful to the other person while like maintaining our own alignment within ourselves. Like, how can we be useful to each other? How can we help each other? Right. And obviously something that you said earlier was like, there's going to be like a healthy relationship. I think like there will be fights. Like there is fights, and that actually is the thing that needs to come up to actually make things stronger. Yes. Because I think that there's like an innate aspect inside of us that we actually don't just give people trust. Like trust actually truly on a nervous system level is not given. It's earned. And that trust is earned through vulnerability, through me being able to see all the parts of you. Like the more that I see all the parts of you, the more that I know that you're like authentic. I'm not going to use that word. The more that I can see the full spectrum of you, the more I actually trust you, because I can see all of you. There's not this part inside of me that's like, okay, when is the crazy bitch going to come out? Like, I know it's in there. When is it going to come out? Like, show it to me. Then I'm like, okay, fucking finally. All right. Thank you. I've seen it. Like, now I know that I can trust. And so it's that process of fighting and I don't know if I could even call it fighting. It's like the friction moments where something comes up and we need it to come up and out so that we can actually repair from it and like lay the bricks of a stronger connection that is trust.
Yeah, making really beautiful points, because that, again, that friction is that transmutation moment. And the fights, this is the thing. You want you want to be in your body when you have a fight.
Absolutely.
That's when the problem happens, is when you leave your body.
When you become super reactive.
Super reactive, disassociative, fight or flight, freeze, fawning. Like when you're any of these states, you're no longer present in your body. That's when doesn't mean your relationship doesn't have legs. It just means that there needs to be some like safety gates, some bumpers put around how you communicate. Like maybe you need to take a break for 20 minutes. Yeah. Like I had a practice for a while when there was friction in partnerships where I would take 20 minutes and I would listen to cocktail jazz. Just put on my headphones, do. And it just like brought this levity to the moment, because it's so happy. Yeah. And it's so funny to be so heated and listen to cocktail jazz.
Like try to be angry after you're
listening. It just somatically, like my body was like, okay,
let's try this on.
We're doing fine. And then, I take it off and resume the conversation. And it was a bumper, a little safety gate to help me like create a bridge between the moment of tension to the moment of peace. And also, like, I love that you said the crazy bitch. I love the crazy bitch archetype.
I do too.
Love it.
Love it.
It's so fun. Creating spaces for women to come in and just be fucking crazy. And fights, like, if we think about fights as an immediate opportunity to find a new texture for women listening, a new face of the feminine, a new face of Shakti that you've never explored, and think about a fight as a creative project. And the same goes for men, like a different face of Shiva. One of the flavors of Shiva, what flavor of Shiva is wanting to come through to express in this different situation. Then our fights become these golden platters of opportunity to play. Like if crazy bitch, she who has crazed eyes, if she came forward and she had a message to share, how would she do it? Would she slap somebody in the face with a tortilla and stomp off? Like, what would it be? Yeah. And we get to play with these different realms. And I don't know, in that light, conflict seems so much more fun and exciting.
It does sound so much more fun, right? The theatrics of it. Yeah. Okay, I'm curious what are some signs that this is actually, it might be an unhealthy amount of like processing, because I've seen there's this shadow side of like the coaching realm where, because really you could pick every little fucking thing apart and you could literally turn every little thing into a process. When it's like, okay, why do we do the work to begin with? Is to be able to just like live. Yes. And there's so many of us that are growth masochists, I would say, where it's like, okay, oh, that came up. Like, this is an opportunity for growth. That means I need to address it. That means we need to bring it up. There needs to be friction right now, like we can. And so it's the same thing where I see people like, let's go do the next ayahuasca session, or like, I need to keep continuing to do shadow work and never actually come up for breath to just be able to live. And if that's watching Netflix and just fucking chilling, then okay. Right?
Yeah. So processing has pretty much very little artistry to it, actually. Yeah. And what I love about
I love that.
What I love about artistry is that it's fast. When I think about processing, there's a decrease in polarity.
My body goes,
yeah. It loses all heat. Yeah. There's actually no friction to me. I mean, there is friction, but not the kind we want. It's not the two rocks creating a spark. It's in the head and it's going into the childhood systems. Over and over. Yes, exactly. It's not so somatic based. It's brain based. Exactly. And there are times where that's incredibly necessary. And the older that I get, the more I think in almost all moments of conflict, when you are including processing, err on the side of brevity. How we don't need as many words as we think to get to the root of something. I felt sad. I wanted you to remember our anniversary. That like encompasses a lot. I felt sad. I felt disappointed. I felt grief. I wanted I wanted this. I really like, and then I think the nervous system of the person you're speaking to gets it so much deeper. We think we should over-explain all the things, but when we have something that we need to vocalize, saying how we feel and what we wanted, and any stories that came up, those are really the three main things. Felt sad. I thought, oh, he doesn't care. I wanted you to remember.
You literally just like explained the somatic relating practice that I use. And that is, okay, check in. Well, it's a bottom up process. Like you're like, okay, I felt this way. I would say, okay, what do I notice in my body first? Like just instinctually, like there's like tension in my gut or tension in my like chest, and I'm feeling like really sad. And I'm imagining that like, or like I was thinking that you were going to do this for me. And so it's like that bottom up process. And then after I actually check in where I'm at, then I can be like, and this is what I actually wanted. And then if you can like go back and forth on that, it's like, it actually just, it can be very brief. You can get to the point. It doesn't need to be like over and over in the mind. Like, okay, months ago you did this, and like breaking down the whole story of it. Right. We can just get caught up in the loops and tunnels of the mind.
Yes. Yeah.
Over and over and over again. And I think that's like where I've talked that talk therapy really kind of misses it, because it's your body's an antenna, and the state of your thoughts are going to be based on what's going on in the antenna. And so let's get to the antenna.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to think of it in two different sections. There's the vocalizing section. There's the vocalizing this is what's happening. It's a little more therapeutic. And then there's the yoga then there is the somatics in your body, the expression. Yeah. And they're two different things. So when we talk about being an artist of love, and we talk about having more expression in your partnership, that's slightly different from processing, and they're equal. Sometimes we really need to use our words, and we really need to explain something. Not always.
Not all the time.
Sometimes you need to like your partner says something that hurts your feelings, and instead of saying that it hurts your feelings, you just go over and you start twerking into their hips as you sing the frustration. Yeah. You just play with it. And then you get a lot done in like a 30-second little mini theatrical performance than you do in a 3-hour sit down deep dive on the inventory of your resentments.
Oh my God. Yeah. I love that. And it's like, there's so many things that just can't be communicated from words. Like ideally we'd have an expression for like all of our centers, you know, we'd have like a primal expression for ourselves. We'd have like a sexual expression. We'd have like a powerful expression, a heart-centered expression, or a mental expression, spiritual expression. Like the more routes of expression that we have, the more we're resourced to be able to deal with different things. And especially there's been multiple times where I have found myself as a specialist, like going into just one expression. Like for a while there, I was just like physical movement, just working out, or like somatic based movement or flow or stuff like that was like my way of processing stressful energy. And I think it kind of goes back to like when I was a kid, because my parents were, you know, addicts, and I was the only child, and I would always, this ties into like, I definitely have avoidant tendencies as well, but I would always be like, y'all are crazy. I'm going outside. I'm gonna go play. I was always a kid running the streets and like skateboarding, playing basketball, whatever it is. I was always doing some sort of movement, because that put me in my body where I wasn't thinking about what's going on at home. Wasn't thinking about what's going on in the future, past, all the things. I was like in my body. But when you find yourself as a specialist in one expression, like I ended up like spraining my knee, and then that expression was taken from me. And then I was like, oh, well, what do I do now? Like I found myself becoming so depressed, and I was like, I have to find other routes. Well, I started picking up music or podcasting or writing, or maybe sometime I'll try theater.
Did you ever go through a time when you were in the body, like the main body movement portion of your expression, where you would like, it's not self-destruct, but it's like you wanted more and more and more and more and more intensity as a way to meet things?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that anytime it's more and more intensity, there's an aspect of I need more to be able to feel. There's probably, I've pushed so much down emotionally that there's so much numbness there that I need more intensity to actually feel something. Like I've been with partners sexually that need like a ton of stimulation or like very physical, like rough sort of relating, if you will. Not gonna give too much. To be able to feel something.
Yeah.
Because the other half of the spectrum of sensitivity and softness and like really light, they're not able to feel the full spectrum, because there's beauty in both sides, right? And honestly, it's the ability to like switch it up, to have range, right? It's a good question.
Yeah, I really relate to that because I was a bodybuilder in my earlier years, and I've always had body-based practices as a way for me to feel myself. Because I grew up with a family that would bludgeon and berate me until I had a smile on my face through the tears. So they'd get mad about something, and then I'd cry and, stop it. And like one parent after the other running upstairs, trying to get me downstairs to watch a movie and to smile and to have family night. So I would have to retreat so far back into what was my actual expression to get rid of it. I had to numb out. Yeah. And then I was, mixed with gaslighting, like, you were never sad last night. Yeah. And then like when I'm 5 years old and I was like, but I thought I was sad. And they're like, no, you weren't. You were happy. Oh, God. Like all my life, like, you don't want to have the dog. We're gonna rehome the dog. Me being like, no, I love my dog. And then be like, no, you don't. You don't love your dog. And then rehome. And like growing up and being like, so I got into bodybuilding and like I wanted to make myself as small as possible because one, I hated being a woman. I thought the female body was gross. I thought men were, coming from a conservative Christian family, like men had the voices, women don't. And the more I lifted weights, the more protein powders I consumed. Like I felt not alive. It was my method of like self-destruction through perfection. Yeah. And it's how I thought I could feel myself, and through 3-day workouts, until I had this major shift in my life where I was like, what is like grass underneath my bare feet? What if I did that? Like, what if I started moving like an animal and like getting into my primal body and understanding that? But every once in a while, there's a part of me as an adult that I'll be like, today's a day where I consciously, with sovereignty, want to just like work out really hard, and I want to go to the sauna and I want to sweat my entire body weight out, and I can just feel the texture of 21-year-old me. But I do it with awareness, wanting to bring her through. Yeah. Like I want to feel what it's like to feel so much pressure with like running and lifting weights and doing this, like a whole day jam-packed with this. Intensity. And then the next day I wake up and I'm like, where's the grass underneath my bare feet? And I'm going to go dance. And it's in the repertoire.
Yeah. You've cultivated range, and it's a beautiful, reflection, reflexology, if you will, of the body, because the body likes variety. Mm-hmm. Like I worked on so many people's bodies with postural issues, and you call it repetitive stress injury for a reason. You become what you repeatedly do over and over and over again. If you continue to do this one expression over and over and over again, you'll get good at it, but the body doesn't like it. Mm-hmm. The body, and probably the soul, doesn't either, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. Like you want to have range. You want to be able to feel the full experience of life. And if you cut yourself off and you live down here, then you're going to cut yourself off and you're not going to be able to experience up here. And then you become this like living death, which is like a flat line. It's a flat line existence where people have cut off their range.
And it's the thing that we want so deeply in partnership too.
Yeah.
We want, as women, not everybody, but a lot of us want he who opens doors and brings flowers, and he who...
Novelty. Everyone craves novelty.
Yeah. And
we need structure. Like we crave stasis for sure. Also novelty.
We want the whole world in one person. It's a lot to ask. And it's what we want. We want to feel the universe through our person. We want to feel the jungle at the same time that we feel the desert, at the same time that we feel Marlon Brando, at the same time that we feel I don't know, Elijah Wood, because I love Elijah Wood. We want to feel like the textures of fantasy at the same time that we feel the textures of drama. Like we want to feel all of it.
Yeah.
And when we learn how to be expressive, it's not just about us. I get to now be expressive. It's about I get to now show my person in the universe through my one body. And I know that anything any other woman has, I have it inside. And it also like mutes out, at least for me, like once I started to really practice all these different flavors of the feminine, like the fears of, oh, she has this thing that I don't have. I'd be like, oh, I've got that. I would watch her. I would want to like, where do I feel that part of her inside of me? And use the places where there might be jealousy or envy as an invitation to lean into this texture you clearly like.
Yeah. And I like how you say that it's not just about like your expression too, because at the same time when you're in relation, one of the things that I see, I'll tie this together, is this idea of integration, where it's like, okay, most people's idea of integration is like, okay, I have this powerful experience, I like receive insights, whatever it is. Okay, and like, how do I integrate this into how I am living, right? How do I become this new version of myself? When it's like, well, nobody can integrate for you. Like you have to step in and try these new patterns on. But the biggest thing that allows people to become this, like, and to continue to become, because that's a never-ending thing, is the container of their environment and their community, and the container of the relationship that allows you to be a verb. Because as soon as I think that I know you, as soon as I'm like, okay, I know who you are, like, don't need to explore that anymore. Like, then the life of the relationship just... Because can you hold a container that allows you to be a verb, to like to become or to be a completely different person like tomorrow than you are today? And I see that over and over again with people, is like they have profound experiences with me, and then they're like, well, how do I go back to my relationship? Or like, how do I go back to my job or my life? Like, because usually it's the people around you that might be stuck in a contracted state, and the more of a contracted state that they're stuck in, the more stasis they're going to crave, because they want stasis in their life. That gives them a false sense of safety, where it's like, okay, I want you to be the same person as you are today, as you're going to be next day, like be the same. Yeah. Like please don't do anything crazy on me, you know?
Yeah.
And well, it's the people, or like, I can still feel people from like high school or college that are like, that are thinking about me in a certain way. And like, that's who I am. It's like, no, I'm like doing new things all the time, and hopefully you are too. Right. If we can hold that relational energy of allowing you to just be a verb and become.
Yeah. Like creating a culture of shapeshifting.
Absolutely.
Creating a culture of shapeshifting, wanting shapeshifting, allowing shapeshifting, craving shapeshifting, actually actively practicing the art of shapeshifting, so that when you do shapeshift, like as a human, you've been practicing.
Yeah.
It's not a surprise. It's not a surprise to those around you. Like I had last year for my birthday, there was a celebration where me and my girlfriend, we had 2 parties to celebrate it. We're Leos. We're just let's have 2 parties to celebrate both of us. And one of them I was circled around people, and like I only knew like 2 of them, and somehow all of them were familiar with my work or something. And it was so the things they were saying, they were giving praise. And one of the guys who I did know was like, "You're a Shakti wild card. I never know what I'm gonna get with you." And it was like, I'm soaking that up with my branding. I'm like, I got to use that for things. But I aim to be that now that that's been in my consciousness. Like, I want to be a wild card. I don't want you to know, not in an avoidant way of you don't know me, way. But in a playful of like,
Leela.
Catch me if you can. Yeah, Leela, exactly. Just being the art form of play. And shape-shifting is like a truly profound practice that goes way beyond the moment.
I use that word, absolutely. I use that word shape-shifting in teaching because like specifically when I'm holding a group session, a group container, and I'm working with people, you might have one person that's crying, one person that's orgasming, one person that's like laughing, one person that's like yelling at the top of their lungs. And it's like my ability to go to this person and match them and meet them where they're at. And go to the next person and match them where they're at. I might have to just embody like soft, nurturing energy. And then over here, it's like this person's got a lot of fire, like power, courage. Like, can I relate to them and match them and meet them where they're at, like somatically? And so there's a lot of exercises that I do with people to be able to like meet people and to switch. Like, do you have choice? Can you be super intense and then also like soft and so nurturing and everything in between? Yeah. It's a beautiful practice. And I think that I utilize that like within my, I would say, practice of working with people, but I probably could utilize that more just in my own daily life.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going through a period of that. I think building a business that has grown so much, that has required like specific archetypes of myself to come through. And now it's to the point where I have a team running it. Like it's become its own thing. And now I'm like, because it was me and I was it for a while. And now it was like this birthing process of, okay, let's like, it's bigger than me. Now it's become its own entity. And now let me peel myself apart from it because it was kind of my identity for a little bit, but it's not. And so now it's like, okay, what do I actually want to talk about? What do I actually want to express? Like peeling myself apart. And now I'm in this new exploration phase of, okay, I hammered myself into these expressions, these archetypes. Now it's like, okay, let me peel myself off and be in this exploratory phase in a way.
Do you have one that's present the most right now? Archetype, expression, curiosity?
I would say the artist. Like the artist definitely, music has been a big thing for me lately, just like being able to just pick up different instruments, or even with music production, and also the student too. I've been a teacher for a while. Like a student and teacher, I think, go together. Like if you're a good teacher, you should continue to be a student. But I'm asking myself, like, what else do I want to learn? I don't really know necessarily right now, but I love being a student as well. What about you? What's like, as far as your expressions or archetypes, like what's being asked?
I've really been sitting with the Magi archetype. Magi is traditionally a man, but I'm feeling into the Magi, just the magic realms and old ancient magic, and studying magic and oracular arts. Like the oracle has been, I've known for not a lot of my life. That's a unconscious thing to say. I've known for a bit of time that I do have an oracular practice of being able to, I can sense things before they happen, right before they happen, or when they happen, or a while before.
Oracular oracle, you mean, right? Or okay, I was just breaking that down.
Oracular arts, so being an oracle.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean I see the future or anything, but I'm super sensitive to shifting in energy. Like I can feel the moment something shifts with a friend, like across the pond. Like I can feel these things and I've ignored them. So I've been creating a little bit more of a practice of how do I consciously step into states where I get to go into the great void or I get to go into the abyss. Maybe I'm held, maybe I do have a shape-shifting practice that is like animal shape-shifting and like practicing that art. So it's, I'm more in the priestess rituals right now and tending to sacred like priestess memories that I have from past lives. You know, I'll only have a couple, but they're very specific and they're very present in this life of the way I was a priestess, and I'm starting to bring that through a bit more. And it's all about magic. It's all very magical and fun.
I love that. Yeah, tapping into your extra sensory perceptions. Which I think that specifically most women are much more sensory or sensitive. They have more sensory awareness, whether it's physical or metaphysical in a way. What are there any specific practices that you're doing for that?
Yes. Well, my main practice, I'm definitely a bhakti. So singing is my main practice.
Love that.
And I'm in this incredible mythic somatic program. You're going to love this. So,
I need to hear about this.
Oh my gosh, it's the best. I'll tell you offline. I'll tell you a little bit more. But it's where myth lives in the somatics. So for a year, I've been doing this study of myths across cultures, across lineages, all these stories about grails and nectar and ecstasy and hysteria and rock and animism. So a lot of animism. And where that lives in the body. Where does the grail live in the body? Where does the stone live in the body? Where does the churning of the cosmic ocean live in the body? And breathing that in and creating practices with that. And one of the practices that my teacher had us do was pour water over an object of devotion. Pour water, because there's so much symbolism in water being poured over rock, of the great moment of ecstasy, of DMT being released in your mind, of like entering trance states. It's the great washing through, the cleansing. And I did a 2-hour practice 2 weeks ago where I poured water over my Dionysus statue straight for 2 hours, and I listened to a 4-minute song on repeat. And I ate a little bit of some sacred food to help like stimulate it.
Absolutely.
And oh my gosh, it was such a deep practice, but to sit there with my spine straight and to only have a ladle in my hand and pour water over a statue for 2 hours, when all the things in me were like, I want to lay down. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to change the song. Noticing the little me in me.
Yeah.
And to step into this ritual trance state practice where it wasn't about me. What I wanted to do, my body, my back pain, nothing was about me. And it wasn't disassociation. I was deeply in my body. I didn't leave my body in order to ignore the pain, but I felt the myth inside of those pain points. I felt like the story of the spine, or I felt the collective fall of culture paying tribute to the animate life force alive in all things by me merely wanting to lay down instead of do my practice. Wow. It was really amazing.
Profound practice, pouring water over.
So profound. Oh, and it was so cool because my Dionysus statue, like he's holding these grapes, and I was pouring water, and I had this red silk sash behind him, and the red was reflecting in the water when I was pouring, when there was water droplets dripping from the grapes, and the red reflected. So I was pouring water, but it looked like there was wine dripping from the grapes. And I was like, whoa, like I was going into this whole, that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It was beautiful. And sometimes it's like doing the simplest practices, but being in full devotion and service of that you have the biggest revelations.
repetitive things over with intention. It reminds me of like Vipassana, which absolutely sucked, but it brought up all of
I bet.
the stuff in a way. Like I sat there for hours and just like my body was just fucking hurting. Like I did not want to sit cross-legged anymore. Like my hip, I felt like my leg was going to fall off. And I just sat there and had a massively intricate conversation with my hip. It was like all of that. And then I just was like repeating over and over and over again, because I used to be like an amateur skateboarder and just throwing myself down staircases and concrete and all the things. And I'm like, why did I choose to do that? And just continue to say, I'm sorry over and over. I probably said, I'm sorry for like 6 hours straight to my hip.
That's deep.
It was deep.
That's so beautiful.
It was a deep thing, and it sucked, but it
Yeah,
was very good for me. Madelyn, this has been an absolute pleasure to drop in with you. Thank you for sharing all of this. And it's very much felt, just being here. I love doing in-person podcasts because I can co-regulate. I could feel how much like embodied this work is that you do. If people are looking to work with you, check out more of your stuff, connect with you, where's the best place to do that?
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
It's been really fun. I love talking about somatics and body sovereignty.
I feel like we could do another one.
I know.
Yeah.
Me too. So if anyone really resonates with this, you can find me on Instagram at Madelyn Moon.
Go find her. She's very funny.
Madelyn. Yes, I love creating comedy things and teachings there. And then my website is maddiemoon.com. I have deep dive programs that include in-person retreats. I've got a book called Artist of Love. I've got masterclasses. You can find all that on my website.
Cool. We'll get the links. We'll put it in the show notes. Go check her stuff out. She is rad. So
thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in, and we are out.